Josh Allen, quarterback supreme, leading the Bills to the top of the league. Weapons by his side, and that defense hella mean. Buffalo's got a team that must be seen. I said Buffalo's got a team that must be seen. Yes. Come on. J17 leading the charge. Buffalo Bills on the rise. Passing game on point. Ain't no mirage. Happening right in your eyes. Ain't no surprise. Buffalo stacking the QBs. Stephon Diggs holding in the pass. Group cars in having go deep. We're circling wagons. Just wait and see. From Wyoming to the NFL, Josh Allen's got the skills. Air raid, deep ball, touchdown for real. Leading the Bills to playoff drills. Real time, this ain't no drill. Cold game, we're giving them chills. Check the score, now you know the deal. Nickel City Mafia.
What is up, Nickel City Mafia? I know Keith didn't like that last highlight. Josh Allen going deep to Diggs and then finishing it off with a nice little pass to Mr. Knox there. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to a Wednesday evening. We are excited. We got another good one for you. We always say that, but we do believe we have a good one for you. We have joining us tonight, as always, my co-host from Nickel City Mafia, Jake Podger, who also rotates in on the AFC East Summit Show, a new channel that was started a few weeks back. Keith is the representative for the Dolphins on that AFC East Summit channel, and I'm going to use Jake's terminology here. He's a dog. He's a real dog. He knows his team so well. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, you know, as the title says, are the Miami Dolphins the biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East? A lot of people would say yes. I do think the Jets have closed the gap somewhat. We did this show last year, and people loved it. They loved it. And we were actually right. We were absolutely right. They were the biggest threat. So this year, we got a twist on things. So yeah, we can talk about a lot of the shows are saying it really all depends on if Tua stays healthy. Well, you know what? That's an obvious thing. But there are other position groups that can help out a team. And I do believe the Dolphins picked up a nice backup in Mike White this year. And we're going to talk about these different positional groups. And this is going to be fun because each one of these reps are kind of going to battle. They're going to get it 2.5 minutes to talk about those positional groups and say why they believe that group is better than the other teams. Now, they may concede. They may. I don't know. We're going to find out here because it's, man, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at a lot of things. These teams are very close. Now, the fun thing is after they get through their 2.5 minutes, I'm going to ask them, who is the better group here? We're going to start with defensive line, just so you know. And Jay can say the Bills. Keith can say the Dolphins, or one of them can concede and give it to the other team. If it's a draw, it's a draw. We'll move on to the next one. They both have 2 phone of friends, 2 phone PFF. Tell me what PFF says for this positional group, Mike, and I will let them know. They only get 2 of those throughout this show. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Keith, welcome to the Nickel City Mafia. First time you're joining us. Great to have you, man.
It's great to be here, Mike. Thanks a lot. This is going to be a lot of fun.
This is. I love that you're. What's the jersey number you're wearing there?
Feeling wild tonight.
Oh yes.
17.
All right. And Jake not sporting a jersey tonight. That's a little surprise.
You know what? I put all my jerseys away. The problem is, Mike, we're in the process of, we're going to be moving very soon here. So my wife said, listen, it's time to pack it up, put it all away. It's currently in a storage unit right now. Like all 70 of my jerseys in a storage unit. I'm a little terrified about it. Usually I keep that stuff real close to my chest, literally on my chest. But yeah, not today. I'm sure Keith is probably throwing up in his mouth a little bit, seeing the highlights at the end of that intro video there. Appreciate you, Brett, for giving us some props on that one, brother. He says it's the best intro out there. We had a couple people in the comments on the last show, actually one person in particular, Charles, who I'm still waiting for a new intro from. So shout out to Charles. Appreciate you, brother. You got to bring that intro to us pretty soon here because I said by next show, and here we are. So
yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it. I mean, Keith believes not only are the Dolphins the biggest threat, he believes they can win this thing. He believes they can win the AFC East.
I believe they can win the Super Bowl, Mike.
I mean, there you go. He's even going bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
I love it. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to talk about defensive line first. I am going to put them on the clock. First time we're ever doing this, so this is going to be fun. It's kind of like the rap battles that they do out there. And we're going to start, this is Keith's first time, on Nickel City Mafia, you might be a little nervous. So, Jake, I'm going to have you start on the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills. And Jake Podger, your time starts now.
First off, I want to start by saying we have 5 first-round picks at the defensive end position. Pretty insane when you really break it down. Now, a couple of those guys are sort of quote-unquote journeymen, guys that really didn't pan out, but I think they have a real good shot at coming here in Buffalo and sort of rebounding and helping their careers out a little bit. One of those guys who I don't think needs any rebounding and will continue his great play is a man named Leonard Floyd. He's one of the more recent pickups by the Buffalo Bills. I think he is going to make a significant impact. You package him with Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, and then you factor in the other defensive ends that I mentioned, Shaq Lawson. You got Boogie Basham still, and you have AJ Epinesa. It's a pretty solid young defensive end room partnered with some great veteran leadership and guys that'll play at a high level. So very excited about that. In terms of the defensive tackle position, we just re-upped Eddie Oliver, which is great. I think he's a very good defensive tackle. Not necessarily a top 5 guy, but he's definitely in the top 10 in my opinion. So looking at these 2 D-lines, man, we still got Daquan Jones. We signed Poona Ford, who's a very underrated signing. We have a lot of mass in the middle there, man. I'm feeling really good about it. We definitely got better at that position there. So when you look at the 2 D-lines, now it's very interesting. The Dolphins, they end up getting Vic Fangio. They are now switching to a 3-4 defense. And looking at their team, I do like who they have. Obviously, Christian Wilkins is an absolute dog. In my opinion, he's better than Eddie Oliver. But Raekwon Davis, pretty solid nose tackle. You got Zach Sealer, who's one of the better run stoppers in the league. But if we're going off strictly defensive line based on these 3 dudes compared to the Buffalo Bills 4, I think I got to take my Buffalo Bills in this one, guys. I really do, just because of that alone. Now, if the Dolphins did go to 4-3, it may change things a little bit because now you got to factor in Jalen Phillips. You got to factor in Bradley Chubb, a couple other guys as well. They did lose Mike's boy, Melvin Ingram, who always seems to hurt the Bills. But honestly, just looking at it on paper right now and the base defenses alone, I'm going to take my Buffalo Bills on this one. So let's chalk one up for the Bills.
I absolutely love it. And you had some time to spare. Keith, it sounded like Jake was helping you out a little bit. Give us some props to a couple of your guys.
Well, listen, you can't just ignore the other side of things, right? So you got to still acknowledge it. But honestly, man, I mean, I don't know if switching to the 3-4 is the right play. I'm not sure if Bradley Chubb's going to thrive in that outside linebacker position. Bradley Chubb otherwise.
Well, hold on. Let's keep it on task here. So, Keith, your time starts now.
Well, first and foremost, as far as switching to the 3-4, that's what Bradley Chubb ran with Vic Fangio when Vic Fangio was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, and Bradley Chubb put up double-digit sacks when he was under Vic Fangio. So
that's a good point.
That's going to be a return to form, we're hoping, from Bradley Chubb, who wasn't very good when he came over from the Broncos last year. But as far as our defensive line goes, Zach Sealer, great run stopper, great playmaker, makes a lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He's always in there. And he's been great since he came over from the Ravens. Coming back from injury, we have Emmanuel Ogbah, who was great for the Dolphins 2 years ago, and last year they lost him very early on in the season for the rest of the season. So I'm looking forward to Emmanuel Ogbah coming back and being part of that rotation. Of course, we can't ignore Christian Wilkins, who I agree is better than Ed Oliver. He's up for an extension as well. They were drafted in the same draft class, and he's up for an extension. And Oliver kind of set the market a little bit. Wilkins is going to exceed Ed Oliver's numbers when it comes to what he's going to get paid. And Raekwon Davis, he's had a great camp so far. Mm-hmm. Vic Fangio, not one to really praise his guys, has actually gone out of his way to praise Raekwon Davis and the effort he's put in. It's a contract year for Raekwon Davis, and I really expect great things out of him. He's a mammoth human being, great against the run, and they're saying he's really making a push to being on passing downs as well. He's becoming a much better pass rusher, going after the passer. I'm going out of my way to ignore Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips because in Vic Fangio's scheme, they're going to be stand-up outside linebackers. So along the defensive line, I have to give you this one.
Wow.
I have to give you this one, Jake. Your defensive line is stacked with talent. Your defensive line is stacked with depth. And this one, I will give you a slight edge over the Dolphins.
Fair enough. I respect that.
I love it. So we have our first concede here. He's conceding the defensive line. A little surprised, but like Jake said, it depends. It really depended on which way you went. Were you going to go with the 3-4, which you think they are going to run a lot more of? And had you went the other way,
we would have had a much different. We would have had a much different
story.
But
without a doubt, I will agree with you on that one. I think honestly, you guys definitely take the cake there. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But I see what you're doing there, Keith. I see what you're doing. You're being a little sneaky there. So I don't even have to ask you guys. Keith has conceded this one to the Buffalo Bills, the D-line. So awesome. Let me get that marked down because we're going to recap this at the end. Let's see here. All right. Next up, guys, we have the linebackers. It's going to be interesting because Buffalo has one stud of a linebacker, Matt Milano. Who's going to play beside him? We don't know. But Keith, we're going to have to wait to have Jake answer that. But we're going to put you on the clock first for your linebackers. So, Keith, your time starts now.
All right. Well, I'm going to start at outside linebacker. The Dolphins drafted Jalen Phillips a couple years ago in the first round, and he's really starting to come into his own. He's really getting ready to pop off here. He's looking like a player who's primed for a double-digit sack season. He had great Pro Football Focus ratings last year. Coming off the edge, he had a lot of pressures. I'm really stoked to see what Jalen Phillips is going to do for the Dolphins this season. Bradley Chubb, like I said, I'm looking for a return to form in Vic Fangio's scheme. He played under Vic Fangio when he was with Denver, and he had his best seasons with Vic Fangio as his head coach. In free agency, the Dolphins brought in David Long Jr., who is a very underrated linebacker from the Titans. He's very, very underrated, all over the field kind of guy. The only concern when it comes to David Long Jr. is his injury history. But when he's on the field, no doubt about it, the man is a player. The man makes plays all over the field. So finally, we have Jerome Baker, who's been with the Dolphins probably longer than any current Dolphin on the roster. Jerome Baker he's always been a solid linebacker. He's always been there. He's a very solid blitzer. He's a very good locker room leader. And finally, I'd like to point out Andrew Van Ginkel, who has made some really nice plays for the Dolphins coming off the edge. Honestly, I look at the Dolphins linebackers as compared to the Bills. Matt Milano, no doubt about it, great player. But other than Matt Milano, what do you really have at linebacker, Jake? So I have to say, this one has to go to the Dolphins. This one absolutely has to go to the Dolphins. And with 40 seconds left on my clock, I'm going to drop the mic.
I love it.
Oh, I do love it. All right. Fantastic. I have to agree with you on Jalen Phillips. Interesting story. You probably know this because you know your team, but both Rousseau and Phillips were drafted out of Miami. Rousseau took the COVID year off, his senior year off, and I think did Phillips transfer in his senior year?
From UCLA.
Yeah. So he transferred, and he was the number one edge player drafted the same year, and Rousseau was taken later. And I got to say, man, that dude, he is a stud.
The one knock on Phillips coming out of college was health. And thus far, Jalen Phillips has been a pillar of health. He's been great. He's been really solid for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Timmy, good to see you out there. Yes, Leonard Floyd and Von Miller are listed. Well, let's see. What are we listed at?
I don't believe so, Timmy. No, we're still in that base 4-3. Sean McDermott's not going to scheme out of that by any means. No, they're both at DN. I think they both are listed. They're listed at the same defensive end position. There's anticipation. Basically, people are assuming that Leonard Floyd is going to be taking Von's spot for the first couple of games of the season to start. Realistically, Von's not expected to play the first week of the season, probably the first few weeks of the season, as I mentioned. So, no, they're both at defensive end currently. So that's what I factored into the D-line discussion.
All right. Well, let's get on to Jake Podger. Linebacker, your time starts now.
Yeah, so for us, we play a base nickel defense. So we have two linebackers, essentially. We have the weak side linebacker, the will linebacker, and then the Mike linebacker. So for us, the big what if right now is who is going to replace Tremaine Edmunds. Now, if Tremaine Edmunds was on this team, I think the conversation about the linebacker position may be a little bit different. It may be a little bit more close. Keith, you made a lot of really good points, man. I think David Long is one of the most underrated free agent signings in general this offseason. He's unbelievable. I think he's going to be a great pickup for you guys. He flies across the field, sideline to sideline. He's aggressive. He meets guys at the line of scrimmage and behind the line of scrimmage. So it was a great pickup, and he's going to thrive in that defense with Vic Fangio. You made a really good point about Bradley Chubb as well. 12 sacks his rookie year. He had 8.5 sacks a year after. Tough year with the Dolphins last year. He was doing pretty decent for the Broncos. I think he had like 5.5 sacks with Denver. Only had 2.5 with Miami last year. So really, I do expect to see him to return to form. I think the 3-4 is more of a natural fit for him as an outside linebacker, stand-up outside linebacker. So with that being said, you did mention a ton of talent on that Dolphins linebacking core. And honestly, man, it's hard to compete against that. We have Matt Milano, who is an absolute stud. Don't get me wrong. But then we have a rookie named Dorian Williams, who I really like. I'm very high on him. We have Terrell Bernard, who we also took in the third round last year. And we're not really sure who's going to play as a replacement for Tremaine Edmunds. So it's really up in the air on what's going to happen there. We do have Tyrell Dotson, who has some starting experience. And we did pick up A.J. Klein again, who has a lot of veteran experience and has done well for us in the past. But in my opinion, man, you're just not going to beat that Dolphins linebacking core right now. I think they have one of the better linebacking cores in the league, let alone the AFC East. So listen, you did me a solid. You know, you basically conceded the defensive line group. I'm kind of doing the same for the linebacker group. So I'm going to give you the dub on this one, Keith.
Thank you, Jake.
Absolutely love it. Let me mark that down, guys. Some folks are out there. While I'm doing this, you can answer some of the questions out there in the channel.
I'm not so listen, guys. So that's on the Bills website. Interesting. I use Our Lads typically, and they update their website daily.
That's why. Yeah.
And honestly, they've been pretty spot on with a lot of their depth chart predictions and what they've been saying on here. So interesting that they're both listed at outside linebacker. I don't know why that is.
So this battle is shaping up just like I thought. These teams are very, very solid teams, and both guys making valid points. This next one, corners.
Ooh, this is going to be a fun one.
Cornerbacks. This is going to be interesting. And Jake, you're on the clock first. Hold on one sec. Let me reset your time so you have the full amount of time. We don't want to cheat you at all. So Jake Podger, your time starts now for talking about the Buffalo Bills cornerbacks. Let's go.
Yeah, so there's been one guy that's kind of flown under the radar, and he is a superstar player, honestly, at his best. And I really think this is going to be a breakout season for him, not even more so than years past, because he's already been an All-Pro. He's already been a Pro Bowler. Trey White is all in this year. I think he is set to prove some haters wrong. A lot of people doubting his passion for the game last year and, him taking an awful long time to come back and return from that ACL injury. I think he's poised for a big, big time season. So I'm really excited about him. I mentioned him in our show a couple days ago, just talking about the Vontae Davis situation, which is hysterical. He's a locker room favorite. I think from what I've heard in reports too, people say that he's looked great. He's helping these young guys out. We got a kid named Kyer Elam, who I really like, who didn't get to start as many games as we thought he would have last year, especially being a first-round pick. But I think he's ready to also step up quite a bit. And then we got one of the best nickel corners in football, and Taron Johnson. We also added some depth. We just freaking signed a couple of guys, actually, Cameron Dantzler. We also picked up, we drafted him, Alex Austin in the 7th round, who I actually really like. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy, and we know what Sean McDermott can do with these late round corners as well. So don't ever sleep on guys like that. Across the board, I think we do have some guys that are also very versatile, and Christian Benford, who can play corner and safety. And then we also have Saran Neal, who is technically a nickel corner, but he's a bigger nickel corner and can also play in the safety position a little bit himself. He can play sort of as a rover. So it does really excite me when you're looking at this roster And don't forget, by the way, Dane Jackson, who started a ton of games for us. So, in my opinion, the corner room is very solid. I think we have a ton of depth there. The only thing that really sets these two teams apart is the fact that the Dolphins have two superstar corners in Xavier Howard and now Jalen Ramsey, which was the big story, I guess, for the Dolphins this offseason, is being able to get a guy like that. So, and they also drafted Cam Smith, and I'm a South Carolina guy. Listen, you got a good one in that young man, Keith. So looking at it talent-wise, it's really hard because you have these two superstar corners, and then after that, I think they're very close. I think in terms of that, I think that the superstardom is just a little too much. And Kaiir Elam is good, but I'm going to give this one to the Dolphins.
Now, Jake, I want you to know. Hold tight with your decision, because now you made it easy for Keith. You just made it super easy. He doesn't even have to say
I thought we were
anything.
just kind of.
No, at the end, I'll ask you who has the better team, who has the better positional group, Jake. But Keith, made it easy for you, buddy. So go ahead, drop another mic if you want. Your time starts now, sir.
Well, I'll start out by saying, Jake, that if you wouldn't have chosen the Dolphins, I would have fought tooth and nail for them. But I do think it's close. I think it's closer than people realize.
Yeah.
Tre'Davious White, great player. He had an injury-riddled season last year, but I expect him to come back and be the player he always has been for the Bills. Kaiir Elam struggled a bit last year. He struggled a bit at times, but I think he's got the pedigree, and I think he's going to come back strong. By all accounts, he's having a really great camp right now as well. So with the Dolphins, Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, they're two guys that don't really need much of an introduction. Xavier Howard had a bit of a down season last year. He battled a groin injury pretty much from week 1 on, and he battled it, didn't miss a game, but he didn't. He missed 2 games. I'm sorry. But he battled all year long and made another Pro Bowl, as a matter of fact. So Cam Smith, 2nd-round pick. I don't exactly expect to see much of him this year. Actually, I think they're going to go with more veteran guys and have him learn. Guys like Kader Kohu, guys like Justin Bethel, guys who picked up the slack for the Dolphins last year during their really bad injury-riddled season with the secondary. Their secondary was a walking triage unit, so a lot of guys were pressing action. Pressing the big time action that maybe necessarily wouldn't have otherwise been. So this is a really battle tested unit for the Dolphins, with 2 real legitimate superstars at the top. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the secondary takes the pressure off the rest of the defense. Guys like their nickel corner coming back, Nick Needham. Great nickel corner, really underrated player. Him coming back is also a boon for the Dolphins. So you already conceded, and I was getting ready to fight tooth and nail for them anyway. But I do think the Dolphins have a slightly better cornerback room than the Bills.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, so there was a nice comment. There was a good comment from Timmy in the channel, and we didn't do secondary as a whole. But after we do the next position group, which are the safeties, maybe I'll take a moment and then kind of have both of you just kind of say who you think the better overall secondary is, because obviously those safeties help out tremendously. So this one I'm incredibly excited about. You got the old seasoned veterans. These two are a ride and dies, man. You got Jordan Poyer and you got Micah Hyde coming back, both kind of off of injuries. I should stop talking. I'm giving Keith some ammunition here. But this is going to be a real battle here. You got the young guns versus the vets. So I think it's Keith's time to go first. So Keith, let me reset the timer. And your time starts now. Talk about these safeties.
All right. Well, Mike, like you said, I'm going to start with the Bills. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde coming back off of injury. But they're both 2 excellent players. The Dolphins almost signed Jordan Poyer in the offseason. I was really excited for them to do that. And then somehow they slipped through their fingers and he went back to the Bills. How the hell did that happen? But it's a great safety tandem. Experience, just two really rock solid guys back there for them. So they're two tough guys to beat. So looking at the Dolphins safeties, we have Javon Holland, who once again had a bit of a down season for the Dolphins last year. I think he was asked to do a little bit too much because of the injuries in the secondary for the Dolphins. He was asked to be the player that he wasn't necessarily drafted to be. And I think it's going to be a return to form for Javon Holland, basically based on the fact that the Dolphins have beefed up their cornerback room. At the other safety position, so Vic Fangio likes to play two high safeties for the most part. So at the other safety position, some have Brandon Jones penciled in as the starter at strong safety. I, however, do not. I have Deshaun Elliott as the Dolphins' other safety, who came over from the Lions in free agency. He had a solid, if unspectacular, year for the Lions last year. But once again, he was a part of a really leaky defense. And that just puts pressure on all the other guys. I think Deshaun Elliott is a much better player than he demonstrated with the Lions last year. And I think he's going to return to form for the Dolphins this season. I'm going to pull a Jake on this one. I went first, but I will concede that the Bills safety room is a little better than the Dolphins. But that being said, with injuries for the Bills, these guys are older guys. The Dolphins guys are much younger, and they've been healthier over the course of their careers. That has the potential to change. But right now, on paper, I will concede. The Bills are better.
Wow, you guys are I love it. You're being so nice.
Listen, Keith and I like each other. I don't often like Dolphins fans, but
yeah, I'll tell you what, this is crazy. I mean, so you're right. You're right, these two guys are very seasoned, and they just make everybody around them better. My only fight for you, Keith, if it was me, if I'm wearing that Dolphins helmet, I'm like, look, you got Micah Hyde coming off a herniated disc.
Oh yeah.
Don't know what that's going to be. You know, when he takes that first big hit, that's all us Bills Mafia are going to be crossing our fingers there. And then you got Poyer, who was just riddled with injuries last year. They're both up there in age. So I love it. Thank you for conceding, but you would have had a good argument. Jake, he made it simple for you, buddy. So go ahead and talk about
I just want to shed some light on this beautiful username. Josh Allen is the next L.
Yeah.
Incredible, man. Different dynamic, different type of player than John Elway. But John Elway, he had the helicopter spin in the it was the Super Bowl, right? Where he went airborne. You could tell how much he wanted to win that game. So freaking love that. The comparables are there a little bit, I guess. But love it, man.
Yeah. By the way, so if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. And also get over to the AFC East Summit channel, because you'll see these two guys talking a lot on that particular channel. So love it. Thank you for supporting us. We greatly appreciate it. We really do. So Jake, you've already won the safety battle here, but
yeah,
go ahead. Time starts now. Go ahead, young man.
I was just going to say, Keith, let me tell you why you're right on this. So, yeah, one guy that you didn't really mention too much about was the fact that we signed this young man named Taylor Rapp, who is a really good young safety. I don't know how the hell we ended up pulling that one out of our hat and how we somehow signed him here. He is a very, very good safety. I think he is going to be heavily involved in this defense, even though we have those two absolute studs already in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. They're going to use him all over the field. I think he could play at the line of scrimmage. You might see him sent in on some blitzes, and he might sit back a little bit. We might run three safeties. Who knows? I just, from what I see at the safety group right now, it's absolutely incredible. Again, as I mentioned, Christian Benford can technically also play safety for us. We got DeMar Hamlin, who literally died, and now he's back in OTAs, looking great, apparently. He looks like he's back to full health. He's not a bad safety by any means, but I will say this. Last year against the Dolphins in that Week 3 game where it was 1,000,000 degrees, had we had our boy Micah Hyde playing in that game, it was just announced I think the day before the game that he was going to go on IR and miss the entire season basically. And I was in a bad place, man. That really hurt. That was tough. That was tough to hear. Had Micah Hyde played in that game, it could have really changed the outcome because there was a big throw to Jalen Waddle in that game, which I don't think happens if Micah Hyde's playing. So that was tough. Injuries, you can only use so many excuses for them. But let me tell you this, the amount of depth that we have, another guy, Cam Lewis, we also got, whatchamacallit, who's it, Zane Johnson, too?
Zane Jackson?
Zane, yeah, that's another guy. So just love what we have there at the safety position.
Wait, I was thinking Dane Jackson, sorry.
You're thinking Dane Jackson.
Yeah.
I think it's Zane Johnson. Yeah, it's
Zane Johnson, okay.
Yeah. So, again, what we've done in that room, bringing these two back, of course, somehow we re-signed Jordan Poyer, which I love. Dean Marlowe, another name that Mike hates.
That's another
but
reason.
I like
why
Dean
I
Marlowe.
couldn't remember his name.
We also got another kid, Zane Johnson, I believe, too.
He might just be mentioning that we have Dean Marlowe. Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, Zane Anderson. My gosh, Zane Anderson. I'm sorry. Anyways, guys, that's why we're the best safety core in the league, not just in the AFC East.
Yeah, I love it. I want to ask both of you now because it was asked in the channel. Taking both the corners and the safeties into account, who has the better secondary? And I'll start with you, Keith. Overall, who has the better secondary? Could be a wash. I'm throwing that out there too. Could be a draw.
That seems like a cop out. I'm giving a slight edge. I'm giving a slight edge to the Dolphins here.
Okay.
I think their superstardom at the cornerback position. Plus, Javon Holland is a player that I love. I wore his jersey for the first AFC Summit show. Love Javon Holland. I think he's an ascending player. I think he's going to return to form. He might make a Pro Bowl for the Dolphins this season. So I'm going to give the edge to the Dolphins.
All right. Jake, quick question for you. Same question to you.
Well, I think just because we have the two best safeties, the best safety tandem in the league, and then you add in Taylor Rapp, those guys all make those corners that much better. And we got Trey White returning back to form, going to play his best year of football yet. So I'm going to fight tooth and nail for my Buffalo secondary. I think with the amount of depth that we have returning to all pros, I really feel like our secondary is, it's close. Don't get me wrong, Keith, but I just feel like we might have a slight edge just because of the safety position. Now, if it was just corners alone, I'm going to give you that one. But you factor in safeties and corners, I got to give it to us.
Fair enough.
Well, I love the battle there. I love that you're both sticking to your guns there. You could have easily took the easy way out and said it was a draw. I would have said it was a draw.
Look at this.
Right? And
Brett coming in hot, saying we're going to have 25 or more interceptions. Holy smokes.
Bold
Brett,
statement.
I know it's a little late on the East Coast, Brett. You been sipping something? What's going on? I would love it if that was the case.
Wind down Wednesday, baby.
All right, so we just got through the defensive players and good time here. Now we're going to shift over to the offense. And we're going to start, I think I left off with Keith. I think. So we're going to start with you, Jake, talking about the O-line of the Buffalo Bills. Now remember, you guys both have phone a friend. Call PFF and let me know what they say. Don't forget you have two of those in your pocket. So let's go. Jake, your time starts now.
Well, I'm going to go with JFF, Jake Football Focus here. And I just want to say we drafted a young man who I wanted actually in the first round, and I am so stoked that we somehow got him, landed him in the second round, Osiris Torrance, who I am over the moon about. This guy moves mountains on that O-line, and I think he made us a lot better on the inside. I'm really excited about it. We're also, Mitch Morse is going to return. And I think he is one of the better centers in the league. He's been one of the better centers for the Bills. Probably the best since Eric Wood. Actually, the only center since Eric Wood. So it's a really nice continuation at that position. He's been fantastic for us. He's been a staple, and he really helps when he's playing. I think he really – what an impact he makes on that offensive line for us. Now, I think the biggest question for us is our right tackle position with Spencer Brown. We re-signed David Questenberry. Then we signed a guy, Brandon Shell, who Keith and I have already talked about quite a bit. I think that's our biggest question mark, honestly. And I'm not super sold on Spencer Brown. I like the kid a lot. But with how much he regressed last year, It could have very well been just due to the back injury. I don't know, man. It's very up in the air for me. But considering we did sign David Edwards, we also signed Connor McGovern, and then we draft Osiris Torrance on the interior there, and then obviously maintaining Deion Dawkins. I think the offensive line actually did improve. And, just looking at what the Dolphins have done, you have some young talent there. You do have Austin Jackson, but the problem with him is that, he hasn't been healthy. And when you are comparing right tackles, I think he is a better right tackle than Spencer Brown. And out of all the positions, I'm probably only going to give you that one position, because looking across the board, while Robert Hunt's a good player, while you have Connor Williams as well, and then a few other, Liam Eichenberg, and then Taron Armstead. Taron Armstead, really good left tackle, but the injury history, man. The injury history on that whole offensive line has been absolutely brutal. And for us, I think with the amount of depth that we have now, it gives us a slight edge. And I'm going to stand by that one. I think the Bills' offensive line is going to be a hell of a lot better this year. And I know it's been heavily criticized, as has your offensive line. But I'm going to give us the nod on that one.
All right. Good stuff, Jake. I mean, you do have a big question mark there, and that's Osiris, right? We expect big things out of him. We just don't know. You never know. And, Bates is the starter. He's
Ryan Bates. I didn't even talk about Ryan Bates.
Right, he's the last couple of years. And, are the Bills going to be ready to throw Torrance in week one? You don't know. We think so. We think they should.
Yeah.
But we've been surprised before. So good stuff. I love it. Keith, your time starts now talking about the old line. Let's go.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the standout players. Teron Armstead at left tackle. When he's in there, he's elite. That's all there is to it. He's an elite tackle. And he toughed out some really rough injuries. Some toe injury suffered in week 2 last year. He toughed out some really nagging injuries for the Dolphins last year and showed a lot of toughness. So he's probably going to miss a little bit of time. That's why the Dolphins signed Isaiah Wynn to be their swing tackle. At center, Connor Williams had a wonderful season for the Dolphins last year. He was kind of miscast as a guard with the Cowboys. He was a little light, got pushed around a lot. That's a beefy offensive line the Cowboys had down there, and Connor Williams didn't really fit in with those guys. But as a center, as a light center, as a nimble center for the Dolphins in their zone run blocking scheme, Connor Williams excelled. He turned into a top 10 center for the Dolphins last year. I didn't see it coming. I don't think anybody saw it coming, but he was really great. Robert Hunt has been just a solid right guard for the Dolphins since he was drafted in the 2nd round. He's only gotten better and better as the years have gone on, and I only expect him to continue to ascend. Now, the 2 question marks the Dolphins have are left guard with Liam Eichenberg. He can't stay healthy, and when he is in there, he hasn't been very good. So I think we're going to be looking for Isaiah Wynn to maybe step in for Liam Eichenberg in the starting lineup. And Isaiah Wynn has always been more suited towards playing guard anyway. So I think Isaiah Wynn will end up being the starter. And as far as Austin Jackson's concerned, he hasn't stayed healthy. But he is an ascending player. He's still only 23 years old. So I'm expecting big things from Austin Jackson. And by all accounts, he's having a great mini camp so far. So as far as the starters go, I think I will give a slight edge to the Dolphins, actually.
Ooh, okay.
I think with the returning players and the players that they already have in place, I think they're going to surprise some people this year.
Interesting. So, if you look at PFF, Eichenberg was just horrible last year. They have a 39.8. I didn't even know they can give somebody that low of a score.
Ouch.
But we have some offensive line men that also didn't score well, but none of them that low. So you expect him to be replaced in the lineup. And Austin Jackson, did they sign anyone to kind of help him out? Sort of our same situation. We have Spencer Brown on that right tackle, who we're very concerned about. And as my man's walking away, he's gonna.
I need you to calm down.
We'll keep talking. We'll keep talking. All right. So kind of in the same situation as well, Jake. Do you know who they picked up? Any depth that they
Well,
added?
we were talking about Isaiah Wynn. He's basically a swing tackle who can also play guard. So,
okay.
yeah, that would be technically the signing that they had there. Yeah, I think, position by position here, it's tough. When you look at the comparison, wow, look at this. Hold on.
Oh boy, here we go.
Quick, let's just pull this up for a second.
Yes, this is the known fact. Go ahead, brag about it for a little bit.
Chris, thank you so much. First off, this is wow. I mean, so I just want to bring up a moment too that happened a few weeks ago on Memorial Day. We had Andre Reed on the show here. We interviewed him, and I asked Andre because I've gotten this a few times now. Now, everyone that I know, like close to me, says they don't see it at all. My mom does, but that's my mom. I mean, of course she's gonna say I could say I look like Elvis Presley. She'd probably say I look like Elvis. So it's like you can't really, you only take that with a grain of salt. But people that are like I don't see every day, they say there's a spitting image there of Josh Allen. Now I think I'm a Walmart version at best, but I appreciate the hell out of you, Chris. Thank you so much, sir. That means a whole hell of a lot. So I'm going to take that and run with it. But let's get back to what we were talking about here. We're talking about the offensive line.
Yeah.
When you go position by position, I really do think, like, you look at what the Dolphins have done, and I think they've tried to help that offensive line a lot. The problem is they just haven't been able to stay healthy, as Keith mentioned. Now, Teron Armstead, when you compare him to Deion Dawkins, if you have both guys healthy, I think Teron Armstead's a much better left tackle than Deion Dawkins is. Then you have Liam Eichenberg, who I think can be good, but he's really struggled. I think he's been the one that's struggled the most on that offensive line. And when you look at our interior versus your interior, I think that's where we really win the battle. And it's pretty outmatched, especially with depth too. Now, Connor Williams, no disrespect to him, he did have a very good year. But man, Mitch Morse, he's a hell of a center, brother. So that's why I'm going with our O-line. I think our interior is better. When you look at the two outsides, I think we have question marks there. Now, not so much with Deion Dawkins. I think he did regress a little bit last year. But when you look at the right tackle position, especially with us, Spencer Brown, not really sure what's going to happen there, if he's going to actually be the full-time starter this year. And then for you, Austin Jackson, you have these high expectations, but can he actually stay healthy? Because when he is healthy, I think he's a very good right tackle.
I think he can be. I think if you go position by position, I take the Dolphins at two positions, left tackle and right guard. I think center's a wash, honestly. I think Connor Williams is every bit as good as Mitch Morse.
Okay.
Hey, and I give you the nod at left guard and right tackle. So it's close. It is close.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm sticking with the Dolphins. I really think. And the Dolphins also signed some depth pieces as well. And Dan Feeney, Isaiah Wynn. They have Robert Jones. They have Kendall Lamb, who did an admirable job for them last year. So I think I'm sticking with my guns here.
I like it. I love it. That's what I want to hear. Still, nobody willing to go call PFF on this one. No phone a friend yet.
I'll use my phone a friend on this one.
Oh, here we go.
All right. I like it.
He's going to PFF. Now, full disclosure, Jake, I can't use Osiris Torrance. I just can't because he's not there. We have no data on him. We don't even know if he's going to start day one. We expect him to, so I couldn't. So with Ryan Bates in the lineup and based on who PFF has projected the starters to be for the Dolphins, which is everyone that Keith mentioned, the Dolphins get the slight edge from PFF. Wow. Average score from the Dolphins, 65.33, and the average score on the Bills' O-line, 60.62.
Yikes.
So there you go, folks. And we have our first PFF call. PFF on the line there.
Got to make the right call on that one.
I should have used my voice over here, my little podcast, so I can change voices. And but there we go.
By the way, Keith, we all good out there? You have a Pats fan out at the window there chirping?
Yeah,
what's going on?
My neighbor lost his dog, and he was yelling up my window at me, trying to see if that was my dog. He kept on yelling back there. It's like, dude, I'm in the
Does he not watch? Tell him you got to tell him to watch the show. What the hell?
I should have done a little advertising there. That's my bad.
How about Timmy coming in hot with this comment? It has happened while we were out at a bar, by the way. couple girls came up to me. They said, "Hey, are you Josh Allen?" And I
Oh
said,
boy,
"I'm not, but thank you. I'm like 5 inches shorter, but Told
Hey,
my wife that too, and she's like, "Just shut up. Like this is not even."
so many times I've called him Jake. I get that confused. My son has called him. I'm sorry, I call him Josh. I call him Josh a lot, but my son has called him Josh as well. And some of the other guys on our channel, Chris and Rick, they say yes, he looks just like him. So, and if Andre confirmed it, it's a done deal, buddy. You look like it. You look like him for sure.
That's awesome.
All right, so we had our first PFF call, and PFF gave the edge to the Dolphins' O-line. Wow, I love it. Now we're going to get into tight ends. And tight ends, we're going to – I'm laughing because the Dolphins let go of one of the best tight ends in the league, underused them, never used them. Yeah. And I don't know what the hell they were thinking when you have a guy who's 6'5", I think he was, runs like a gazelle.
6'6".
How are you not utilizing that guy? But – Keith, explain yourself. You are on the clock. Your time starts now. Give us your best about these Dolphin tight ends.
All right. Well, the Dolphins did let Mike Gesicki walk in free agency this year. They did not use him. There's a simple explanation for that, guys. Mike Gesicki, coming out of Penn State, the book on him was great pass catcher, does not block. He's not a very good blocker. He's not a willing blocker. He's not a good blocker. And in Mike McDaniel's scheme, he needs a tight end who's going to block. He needs a tight end who's going to cause the defense to. He needs a tight end that's going to have a little parity in what he's going to be doing. You don't know what he's going to be doing. So when Mike Gesicki was in the lineup, it was pretty much guaranteed he was going to be running a route. So Dolphins let him walk because he wasn't a versatile tight end. He wasn't a complete tight end. So in his stead, the Dolphins have Durham Smythe, who is. Well, most catches in a season is 34. He's a solid, if unspectacular, tight end. He's a decent blocker. He's an okay pass catcher. I wish the Dolphins would have gone after a tight end in the draft this year. I was really looking at.
What are you talking? You got Elijah Higgins, 6th round, man.
Yeah. No, I was hoping they were going to go after. Darnell Washington from Georgia.
That would have been good.
In the second round, I thought that's the direction they were going to go, and they ended up picking Cam Smith. Don't hate the pick, but they didn't get the guy I wanted. And in the third round, Darnell Washington was available to them yet again, and they went with Devon Achane. Once again, don't hate the pick, but I wanted Darnell Washington, who ended up getting picked by the Steelers in the 4th round. I'm taking the roundabout way of saying that the Dolphins' tight end room is not very strong, and I'm mildly concerned about it, to be honest. And the Bills' tight end room is strong. Dawson Knox is a very good tight end, and they drafted Dalton Kincaid in the 1st round, who was the best tight end in the draft. So this one, I think we all saw this one coming. I'm certainly conceding this one to Jake.
Wow.
Jake, I got to ask you. So Smythe reminds me of a little bit of Tommy Sweeney, right? Is Tommy Sweeney still available out there? Who did he sign with?
Tommy Sweeney, I don't believe has actually signed anywhere. Let me look. Oh, no, he did sign with the Giants. Yeah, of course. He did sign with the Giants.
Of course.
Yeah.
They will call some up.
Yeah.
So, Jake, I'm sure you don't need the full 2.5 minutes, but you've already had the room conceded, the position group conceded to you. But go ahead and talk about these tight ends for the Buffalo Bills.
Growing up with tight ends playing for the Bills, such as Robert Royal and Sean Nelson and Derek Fine and Derek Schumann and Ryan Neufeld, who ended up being a long snapper, and barely seeing Jay Rhea-Miersma play, and then having some emergence with Scott Chandler, we've never really had a good tight end room. This is the best tight end room I've ever seen in Buffalo Bills history. I missed the Pete Metzelaars era. I really did. I missed him and the K-gun offense and all that great stuff. So I didn't get to really see that. So for me, this is unbelievable to see Dawson Knox, a Pro Bowl tight end. Now, he did get hurt in minicamp, so I don't think anyone's too concerned about that, but as precautionary, obviously they're going to leave him out of drills, and they actually canceled Thursday practice. So I think they're just done. That's it. That's a wrap. So, when you look at what we ended up doing, a lot of people very surprised with the Dalton Kincaid pick, but the number one priority was to get Josh Allen another weapon and to help that offensive line. And we did both of those things in the first 2 rounds. And shoot, we got essentially a 6'4", 250-pound Cole Beasley and Dalton Kincaid, which is absolutely unbelievable. He might not even put his hand in the ground as a traditional tight end. So from what he brings, he can be an outside guy too. I mean, he can stretch the field. He's super acrobatic. He can make insane catches. He's got a wide catch radius. I am super excited about this kid. And don't forget, we still have Quentin Morris. So from the tight end room, yeah. Hey, Keith, you did sign Tyler Croft, former Buffalo Bill. He's wearing number 48 for you guys, which is really odd. But it's bringing back the old 40s for the tight ends there. Reminds me of the Chris Cooley days, wearing 47. Yeah. But, yeah, that ain't going to happen. To be honest with you, we win this one by a landslide. And I think you can admit that. You already said it in the chat and Discord before this. You said, I'm just going to concede the tight end room right off the bat. So I appreciate that. But listen, looking at all the facts and everything, I'm going to rub it in a little bit. So, yeah, we'll take it. Take the Bills on this one.
So I got to ask you, Keith, because one of the knocks on Kincaid is he's not a blocker as well. And Jake might be right. Maybe we just never even have him play that role. But I think they will. But do you blame the coaching? How can a guy that's that big, how can he not be coached to block? I mean, there's so much upside to that guy, Gaiseki, that is. Yeah. I mean, do you put some blame on the coaching staff? I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, since he was drafted, that was the book on Mike Gesicki, and I think they tried to get him to block. They tried to get him to be an inline blocker, and he was such a liability out there that you line him up in the slot and you have him run routes, and that's what you do with Mike Gesicki. And in Mike McDaniel's scheme, you have to remember he came from San Francisco, and in George Kittle at San Francisco, you have a player who's a complete tight end. He's a dog as a blocker, and he is a great pass catcher. And in Mike McDaniel's scheme, in the Shanahan scheme, that's what you need. You don't need a Jimmy Graham type of player, and that's so. I think he, if he could have been coached up, he would have been coached up by now. But at this point, he's 5 or 6 years into his career. It's just if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen.
Well said. Well said. All right, well, let's move on. We had some drama. Jake, you're going to start this off. We had some drama yesterday. A lot of good content out there. Steph Diggs not showing up, and there was a lot to that. And you don't have to go into all of it, but Jake, you're going to start us off with the wide receiver positional group and talk to us about why you might think or concede. I don't know where you're going with this. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. But your time starts now.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What I saw today at minicamp was Josh Allen and Steph Diggs doing a little secret handshake where they went like this and they put the guns in the holster. So if that doesn't tell you that they're back, I don't know what else does. Maybe they're just doing it for the cameras, Mike. I'm not too sure. But I think Steph is he's on a mission. This is a revenge season. And, he is going to play like the top 5 receiver that he is. And one of the biggest issues, honestly, that I think has been derived from the whole missing camp yesterday and going home and having an argument with Sean McDermott was the fact that he probably looked at the playbook and didn't see a whole lot of change. Towards the end of the year, we weren't using him like we should have been. And listen, I know we gave him 10 targets in that Cincy game, but a lot of those throws were way off, so they still counted him as a target. There was something between Josh and Steph. They couldn't get on the same page. So in terms of that side of things, I think we are going to see a return to excellence with that, and I'm not worried at all, one bit. Now, what we also did in the receiver room was we did upgrade a little bit. I think our slot receivers right now, we got Trent Sherfield, we got Deontay Hardy. Maybe we paid him a little too much money, but we got a speed demon in that young man. Again, I'll say it again. The goal was to get Josh Allen more weapons. Did we do that? I think we did. We signed these guys. Now, obviously, we didn't get DeAndre Hopkins like people were wishing that we did, and there's still a chance to get a guy like that, but it's probably not going to happen with him. Gabe Davis, I think in the playoffs he does an excellent job and can certainly hold his own, but we're looking for more consistency out of him. So the biggest question mark right now is that other outside wide receiver position? Can Gabe take that next step, and is he worth, bringing back for another contract? I don't know. I mean, that's really the biggest question mark. So with that being said, with the Dolphins, I mean, you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 2 1,000-yard receivers. You just bring Braxton Berrios to the team. Cedric Wilson, there's going to be a little battle there at the slot receiver position. I think Braxton Berrios is probably going to win that job. The way that they use those guys, so much speed there and so many things you could do with them, yards after catch and whatnot. You got probably one of the better 1-2 punches, maybe a top 3 1-2 punch with those two guys, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I have to give this one to the Dolphins. I will concede on this one. I tried to fight. Couldn't.
Yeah, no. I think even Timmy out there in the channel is like, no question goes to the Fins, makes it easy. Jake, the only thing I'll say about Steph Diggs, and it was nice to see everybody happy again on the field, but I worry about the first time things get bad again.
Yeah.
When you're in a tough situation, is he going to be able to hold it together? And that's my only concern. Sure, it's easy. They're just playing around right now, having the good old time. But that's what we saw last year as well. And there's just a couple games where, Diggs was getting upset, and I do worry about that. So we'll see. But Keith, you got it easy, buddy. Your time starts now. Go ahead and brag about these awesome receivers you guys have.
Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Once again, those guys need no introduction. They are just speed. They are just super fast. And they're perfect for the type of quarterback that Tua is. So in those guys, and Tyreek Hill had a great season for the Dolphins last year. He was a first-team All-Pro. Jalen Waddle also had a great season. He's the best number 2 wide receiver in the league. I'd like to talk about the Dolphins' slot receiver in Braxton Berrios, who they signed away from the Jets, who is very much in the Cole Beasley mode. Cole Beasley mold, I should say, where he's quick, he's very twitchy, and guy just knows how to get open. And Robbie Chosen, he's had a really
Chosen
good,
Anderson.
Yeah. I don't even know what his name is anymore. He's chosen a bunch of names. He's had a great camp. And he's been hooking up with Tua a lot in mini camp so far. So I'm looking for big things out of him, actually. And when they signed him, I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm starting to expect really big things out of him. River Craycraft had some nice plays for them last year, and the Dolphins signed Cedric Wilson in the offseason last year, and he was very underutilized, and I'm hoping they get him a little bit more involved. But the Dolphins' receiving room is better than the Bills, I think. Stephon Diggs, I think that everything that happened this week was slightly overblown, and I think him and Allen are good, and him and Allen are going to continue to hook up. Stephon Diggs is obviously a top 3 to 5 receiver in this league still. Gabe Davis is a nice receiver, but as a number 2, got to give the nod to Jalen Waddle on that one.
Yeah,
I think the Bills have a nice receiving room, but it's not elite like the Dolphins is. So yeah, I would have fought tooth and nail for the Dolphins on that one if you wouldn't have conceded.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with you on this one here. I just want to say to the channel, these guys are bringing it. Smash that like button, please. These guys, listen to them. They know their teams. I watched a lot of other shows, and my God, you two are bringing it. Love how you know about your team inside and out. Fantastic job, guys. It's a battle right now. It is a battle. I'm looking at this board. I got my Excel spreadsheet up, who you guys have been conceding. And right now it's it's a tie when you give the number of categories that you guys got. But it's close. So it's going to come down to these last, what do we got? 1, 2, we got 4 more position groups to go through here, including coaches. But this time we're going to start with the running backs, and we're going to have Keith kick us off with the running backs.
Real quick,
Keith,
Mike,
yes,
can I
just
address this? Just real quick,
sir.
So with Josh Allen, I don't think listen, I know we paid him a lot of money, but when you look at the quarterback contracts out there, pretty standard, falls in line. Actually, Josh Allen's contract's looking pretty damn good right now, considering I think he's like the 6th highest paid quarterback in the league right now. So when you look at it, you had to get that deal done. And we re-signed Stephon Diggs to a 4-year, $96 million extension. So when you look at it, the money that we invested in those two alone, obviously it's tough to free up cap room elsewhere. We signed some other pieces, and, we had a chance to probably get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. But, we go and sign Taylor Rapp. We signed Leonard Floyd. We signed some other key pieces. And then we signed 2 receivers in Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy, I think a lot of people think we overpaid for him. We pay him around $8 million a season right now. So we'll see what happens with that. I think Khalil Shakir, also a guy that I didn't mention, has a chance to make some noise this year. We liked him a lot in the preseason, and I feel like he's kind of flown under the radar this entire camp. He sounds like he's doing really well with things, and don't sleep on that young man. So we shall see, but
not at all. Plus Jake, you kind of said, you're banking a lot on Kincaid playing that slot role as well. And oh my God, try to stop that.
Right.
Try to stop that guy in the slot. All right. But let's move on to the running backs. Interesting. This is going to be a good discussion here. And Keith, you're going to start us off. So your time starts now, sir.
Okay. This one's razor thin, in my opinion. I think I'm going to start off by saying that I will give the nod to the Dolphins. So
He's going big right away.
Raheem Mostert, underrated, really underrated. Had a really nice season for the Dolphins last year. 891 yards rushing on 4.9 yards a carry. Jeff Wilson came over from the 49ers last year. Also played very well for them, especially in short yardage situations. And the Dolphins drafted Devon Achane out of Texas A&M in the 3rd round. And you know what he does? He just adds more speed to the Dolphins, more speed to an already speedy offense. So he ran track in college. I'm really excited to see what he can do on the field. In Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Devon Achane, you have 3 guys who can carry the rock, who can support each other. It's a great 3-headed backfield. What I want the Dolphins to do more of this year, that they did a really good job of last year, but just didn't do it enough, was run the football. Dolphins did not run the football nearly enough last year. They got away from it way too quickly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys do. And Mike McDaniel himself has said that the Dolphins are going to run the ball a lot more this year. So in Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Devon Achane, I think you have a 3-headed monster back there that's that can really contend with the Bills, can really go toe-to-toe with the Bills. Now, in the Bills, you have James Cook, who is going into his 2nd season. He's probably going to take over as the starter in that backfield. And I like James Cook. I think he's a nice player, but you don't know what he's going to do over the course of a full season just yet. Damian Harris, nice pickup from New England, but he was always part of a committee in New England. So he'll be a part of one in Buffalo as well. Latavius Murray, I was surprised to see that they signed him. How old is he now? 95?
He actually had a decent year with Denver last year. I believe he had around 700 yards rushing.
Yeah,
no,
he did.
32, 33, though. He's in his 30s.
Yeah. And Naheem Hines, who's a nice pass catching back. I'm still giving the edge to the Dolphins, but it's razor thin, in my opinion.
All right, your time is up, right on the dot. I just want to say real quick, Cap for Life asking us about if the Jets have a better roster. Stay tuned for our next show. We are going to be speaking to a Jets representative that is part of the AFC East Summit, and we'll get into those discussions at that time. Right now, it's all about the Dolphins and the Bills. So good stuff there. Jake, this is going to be interesting to you, and I want you to answer this question when you talk about the Bills running back. I've heard some shows talking about Damian Harrison being the lead. Damian Harris, being the lead back. I want to get your thoughts on that. But go ahead. Your time. Let me rewind the clock here for you, and your time starts now, sir.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting thought because last year Devin Singletary was technically our lead back, and then we started to put James Cook into the lineup a little bit more, give him a lot more carries, and it was definitely more, I guess, 52-48 towards the end of the year, James Cook to Devin Singletary. Now, I think Damian Harris is an upgrade over Devin Singletary, to be honest with you. This is a guy that ran for 15 touchdowns 2 seasons ago. He's always been a Bills killer. He's not a bad back. He's still young. And I like what he brings to the table, and we got him at a dirt cheap deal. I mean, for us to sign him, I think it's only like $3 million or $2.5 million. So we did a hell of a job with that one. Again, big baller bean, bringing out the negotiation tactics and absolutely killing it. When you look at the second half of our running back room, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Nyheim Hines, I love, and I was really excited about, but the utilization of Nyheim Hines was very disappointing to me. That's a guy who really could have added a lot of firepower to this offense. It could have been that slot guy. We should have used the hell out of him last year, but instead we just decided to use him at kickoff return, and I think he got maybe 20 offensive snaps all year long. So very frustrated on my end, and I'm sure a lot of other Bills' ends, just seeing the underutilization of a guy like that. You know, this is a guy that brings so much speed, probably the fastest player on the team, and we barely used him offensively. So that has to change. Then we signed Latavius Murray, who, yeah, I mean, had a pretty solid year last year with Denver, still just sneaking around out there, still finding ways to make the team and, you know, get starting experience. And shoot, he could still play in this league, man. And I don't know, he might make this roster. Like, in my opinion, he's probably going to be on the practice squad, which is crazy because that's a lot of talent to be on the practice squad. But that's going to be a really interesting battle in the running back room. Maybe we keep 4 there. Time will tell. But then you do look at the Dolphins room, man. And Raheem Mostert, 891 yards last year. You had, obviously, Jeff Wilson. And then let's talk about your back half of your running back room, right? So obviously you draft Devin Achane, which I really like. Super fast kid, 5'9", like a $170, fast as hell. Myles Gaskin, though, and Selvin Ahmed, 2 guys that have starting experience as well. So your depth is very comparable to ours. However, I will say this. If utilized properly, I think the Bills' backs can be better, and that's why I'm going to give us the edge on this one.
All right. So you're both going to hold firm on that? Yeah. Anybody going to be daring enough to call PFF on this one?
Let's do it. Call PFF. I got to use one. Why not?
Yeah.
All right. So, Jake, this is important. It depends who you feel is going to be the lead back.
Yeah.
Now, I want to also maybe I should have you take a step back. Just it is important who you pick as lead back.
Yeah.
And just know that I'm only using one player who PFF thinks is going to be that lead back. I didn't average all of the depth players behind them.
I think James Cook will be the lead back. I don't think Damian Harris is going to be that guy, but he will play a lot.
Okay. But that decision, PFF, they're looking things up right now. I'm just checking with them right now. Are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah, they're sure. They're giving the edge to the Miami Dolphins on this one. PFF makes the call.
Interesting. Okay. How close is it?
It is 75.7 for the Dolphins, 73.2
that's close.
for the Bills.
We said it was razor
close.
thin. Yeah. We did say it was razor thin.
That was a coin toss right there, guys.
Yeah.
So hold on. Let's get into
hey, Cap for Life coming in here hot, man. He says I wish.
He is. He's got the caps lock stuck on his keyboard or something. Like
it says Cap for Life. So
Cap for that's true. That's true. Yeah. He probably the keyboard broke and he's like, screw it. I'm not getting a new one. I'm just gonna change my name for Cap for Life. Love it. All right. This is gonna be an interesting one, a fun one. I've seen some of the other shows out there, and it's funny when they talk about this battle here. But let's get into it. The quarterbacks. And Jake, you're going to start things off. Let me reset the clock here. And my goodness, it's going to be good. All right, Jake, your time starts now.
We have the most fun, amazing, beautiful quarterback in the NFL right now. I'm not going to say he's the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And shoot, man, like what this guy has done for this franchise is unbelievable. So when you compare Josh to Tua, that's not even fair. Obviously, Josh runs away with this. So let's talk about the entire quarterback room. We go ahead and we sign Kyle Allen, who has some starting experience in the league. And I think he's been a standout guy. He's thrown more interceptions and touchdowns in his career, I believe. It's one of Josh's boys. And then we have Matt Barkley, who is a fan favorite here in Buffalo. And Josh loves those two to death. If push comes to shove, Josh Allen gets injured and Kyle Allen has to get thrown into a game, I'd rather have Mike White in the game, to be honest with you. So when we're looking at the quarterback rooms, shoot, man, your backups are definitely in a much better position with your backup quarterbacks than we are, I think. Mike White, he's got that edge, man. He's got it in him. He's competitive. We saw him get the absolute you-know-what knocked out of him here in Buffalo. He had to go to the hospital immediately after the game playing for the Jets. That guy's a warrior, and I really like the signing of him. I think that he did a hell of a job with that. And then you still have Skylar Thompson, who almost won a playoff game as a 7th-round rookie here. Everyone wrote the Dolphins off, man, and he did a really nice job. I'm not going to say his stats were unbelievable or anything like that. I think his completion percentage was like 40-something%, but he did enough to will that team down and get them close within 3 points, So, yeah, I think your backup quarterback situation is better, but the fact that Josh Allen is who Josh Allen is, I cannot give you the edge at the quarterback room here. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Now, God forbid Josh Allen gets injured, which I think no matter what, he's going to play through that injury. I don't care if he has a broken leg. He's going to find a way to get out there. We thought his season was done last year with the UCL injury, but it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, the backup quarterback situation for you is a lot better. But our quarterback room, just because of Josh alone, it's just it, man. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, Jake, if you hadn't said that, I'd be worried. I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't see
no disrespect to Tua. I think Tua is great in
that scheme. You can't see it on your screen, but you have Josh Allen, a statue of the man behind you. Of course, but anyhow, let's get over to Keith. Keith, I know we're running late for you, so I hope you're all right.
Okay.
Having a good time on the show.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Don't want to make you late for work or anything like that, but let's go. Your time starts now.
Okay, well, I'm not going to disparage Josh Allen because I'm speaking to his doppelganger right now. So,
wow. Oh boy, Keith, you're giving me a lot here.
Yeah, no, Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback in this league. He's the only knock I do have about Josh Allen is that he's got a little bit of that Brett Favre gene in him, where he sometimes trusts his arm a little too much, tries to fit balls in where he probably shouldn't. He threw too many interceptions last year. That being said, he's still a top 3 quarterback. He's a physical specimen. He's fast. He's strong. He's big. He's got the best arm in the league. So, yes, the Bills do have the better quarterback. I will concede that. Let me talk a little bit about Tua Tagovailoa, who I think has elite traits that you don't see every day. The precision and accuracy with which Tua Tagovailoa throws the ball is rare. You don't see it out of many players, and it's something you can't teach. It's something you can't ever teach Josh Allen to throw the ball with the precision and accuracy that Tua Tagovailoa throws it with. I know Bills fans are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but the precision and accuracy that Tua Tagovailoa throws the ball with, it reminds me of a young Peyton Manning. Yes. Yeah. I said that. I truly believe that. And I truly believe Tua, if he stays healthy enough to reach his full potential, can become a player, maybe not of Peyton Manning's caliber, because that seems to be asking too much, but he can become an elite player in this league. Right now, Josh Allen, better quarterback. Absolutely. I will not argue that, but I love what Tua can be. And I've loved what Tua can be since he came into this league. I wanted Tua over Justin Herbert in the draft that year, in spite of his injury history. And I still would take Tua over Justin Herbert. I like their backup in Mike White. Hopefully, if Tua gets hurt, Mike White doesn't get hurt the same way that Teddy Bridgewater constantly got hurt for the Dolphins last year. And I like Skylar Thompson as their 3rd-string emergency quarterback. He availed himself well. So, yeah, I'm conceding. But I do love.
Gotta give your flowers.
Quarterback room.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the signing of Mike White. I mean, I'm going to use Jake. I'm trying to learn Jake's vocabulary. Dog. He's a dog. The older generation, we don't say dog, but that's the thing now. Dog's a good thing. And Mike White, we saw him, man. He got hurt in the Bills game last year, and the kid is good. So you do have a very good backup. Bridgewater wasn't, like you said, he was getting hurt. He just wasn't. And then when he was on the field, just wasn't making things happen. And I don't know how you cannot make things happen when you have that great wide receiver, the wide receiver room that you guys have. If it's me back there or Jake back there, I'm just dumping these screen passes to these guys with their elite speed and letting them do their thing. I mean, come on, make that adjustment. Throw some short passes. These guys, we saw what Tyreek Hill can do. The dude can take it to the house. Waddle can take it to the house with a short pass. My God. But anyhow, love that you conceded there. It's, again, we're going back and forth here, and now we're going to get into the coaches. And this, obviously, everything here, the coaching staff has a big, they have a big influence, a huge influence on what happens. By the way, Cap for Life, I appreciate the clock. I thought that would be kind of cool. I hope it didn't bug the guys too much, because I don't know. I'd be under pressure. If I see that clock, I'd be nervous, but I thought it'd be kind of a cool little spin. So I appreciate you saying something about that. So let's get into it. Keith, you're first on the clock here, talking about your coaches, man.
Well, Mike McDaniel had a decent first season with the Dolphins last year. If I had to give him a rating, I would say I'd give him a B-. All right. There were some nice things that Mike McDaniel did last year, like bring the locker room together. He doesn't run as tight a ship as Brian Flores did. And I think the guys really appreciated that, because Brian Flores was not well liked in that locker room. Mike McDaniel is. As evidenced by their playoff game against the Bills last year, those guys are willing to run through a brick wall for Mike McDaniel. That game looked like it was going to get out of hand, and the Dolphins kept on fighting, and that's a credit to Mike McDaniel and his leadership. So I really like Mike McDaniel as the Dolphins head coach. That being said, he needs to make adjustments. He needs to make adjustments on the fly. He needs to do a better job of doing that. He needs to run the ball more. He needs to stop trying to throw the ball over the middle constantly, because teams are starting to key in on that. So while I like Mike McDaniel, I think that there are things he can improve on. I like Frank Smith as the offensive coordinator. He's a young guy. He's an upstart guy. He's a Mike McDaniel guy. And I think the difference maker for the Dolphins this year is Vic Fangio at defensive coordinator, the grizzled old veteran defensive coach, whose scheme is going to bring the Dolphins into the top 5 defenses in this league. He's one of the best defensive minds in the league, and I think he adds a level of experience to the coaching room that they didn't necessarily have last year. And I think that's really going to push this whole coaching staff over the edge. So I like the Bills coaches. They've not as big a fan of Ken Dorsey as I was of Brian Daboll, but I am giving the Dolphins the edge on this one, because I think Vic Fangio is the difference maker.
Very fair. Jake, let's get into yours right away, because I know Keith is running short on time, my friend. But let's go.
Yeah, this whole thing kind of weighs on Sean McDermott, because he has now taken over the defensive play calling as well. Leslie Frazier has taken a year leave. Leslie Frazier has also said that he wants to get back into head coaching. So I think he is essentially done with the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott, from what I understand, runs a very aggressive defense. I think we're going to see a lot more blitzing. I think we're going to see a lot more stunts, and we're going to utilize guys in different ways. And, the signing of Taylor Rapp, like I said, that could be an indication of something new too. So I love what he brings to the table there. As a head coach, I think, you can't knock a guy who took us to our first playoff berth in 17 years. So there is something to be said about that. Obviously, the team has had a ton of success. How he's handled some tight situations, especially 13 seconds. You go back to that Chiefs game, it still kills me to this day. It kills a lot of fans to this day. And a lot of people are very critical of him, because he's gotten us almost to the promised land, but he's done, I guess, just enough at this point, and he hasn't done more than enough to get us to the Super Bowl. And that's what the most frustrating part is, because we have believed that we had a Super Bowl team over the last 3 seasons. And now here we are again. It's almost like we regressed last year. So It's tough. I think in terms of experience, I still have to give the head coaching position to Sean McDermott. Defensively, it's tough to match him up against Vic Fangio. They run two different schemes. But what Sean McDermott did in Carolina, that was a Super Bowl defense. Now, listen, I know their personnel was awesome, but we got some really good players on that defense as well. So I'm encouraged by his defensive play calling and how it's going to happen this season. I will give you the offensive coordinator position. I think Frank Smith is a much better offensive coordinator than Ken Dorsey. Even though Ken played in the league, he should know this game better than anyone. But to me, he just didn't do enough. And obviously, he's a rookie OC last year, coming into a sophomore season here. But I think I'm going to give you guys the offensive coordinator position. When it all comes down to it, I think I'm going to give this one to the Bills. I really do. This is hard for me to say. Vic Fangio is fantastic. I think your defense is going to be a top 5 defense with him. But just in terms of the overall experience and the guy that is leading the team, I got to give the Bills the edge.
So, guys, there's no call to PFF on the coaching staff. Obviously, I'm going to, the channel can have fun with that. I'm going to give it a draw. You guys made great points on both your ends there. Yeah. So, great job. So we'll give that a draw. And then our final positional group that we're going to talk about is special teams. Special teams. So, Keith, why don't you start us off?
We didn't do fullbacks.
Sorry, buddy.
Jake loves his fullbacks, doesn't he?
I love my fullbacks, man.
So at kicker, the Dolphins are returning Jason Sanders, who has had a couple of down seasons. I think the Dolphins were probably looking into replacing him, but I think they're going to roll with him once more. He's 2 seasons removed from a first-team All-Pro. He was one of the best kickers in football until he had a subpar 2021 and an average 2022. So I'm looking for a bounce back season from Jason Sanders. I think he has it in him. Jake Bailey is currently slated to be their punter, but I would watch out for Michael Turk, who is the great Matt Turk's nephew.
Former
Matt
Dolphin,
Turk, Dolphin legend, Redskins legend. He played for like 15 of the 30 teams in the league back then. So, but Michael Turk might supplant Jake Bailey, and if he does, I could see him doing some good things. Now at return, the Dolphins are going to put Braxton Berrios back there, who's a solid returner. He's nothing special. He's solid. He's fast. He's quick. He's got sure hands. And that's pretty much all the Dolphins need, because just get the ball in the offense's hands and let them do their thing. So for the Bills, you have Nyheim Hines as their returner, who is the better returner. You have Tyler Bass as their kicker, who's probably the better kicker. And Sam Martin as their punter. I'm sorry, I don't know who Sam Martin is, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you all about him.
What's that?
I'll tell you all about him. Don't you worry.
Well, based on all of that, Nyheim Hines being a game breaker at returner, Tyler Bass being the more consistent kicker over the past couple of seasons, I think I'll concede this one and give it to the Bills. But with the caveat that if Jason Sanders returns to form, this is much closer than what I made it out to be.
Love it. So, Jake, he made it easy for you. You did not even have to call PFF to get their take on this one.
Yeah.
But go ahead, finish off.
I think you guys are missing Jakeem Grant a little bit. I think you're missing Ted Ginn Jr. a little bit. I think you're missing some of those old school returners that you had back in the day, So, yeah, I mean, shoot, you go back to the game after, the whole DeMar Hamlin incident, the first home game. Nyheim Hines takes 2 kickoffs back to the house. I mean, you can't script that any better. As much as people say the NFL is scripted, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that was just a higher power acting in a way that he put something to Nyheim Hines that day, and Nyheim ran with it literally. So, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the return game, he is fantastic there. One of our best returners since shoot, I mean, maybe Roscoe Parrish or Terrence McGee. I'm excited about that for sure. Yeah, as far as the kicking position goes, Jason Sanders is a good kicker. He's regressed a little bit. Tyler Bass, I think, struggled a little bit last year at times, but made up for it, and now he's back to who he is, and he is a very good kicker for sure. Slippery Sam Martin came into this team with a ton of adversity put behind him. He came in after the whole Matt Araiza situation and, how that was handled and all that good stuff. Crazy stuff. But what he did, I mean, every time that guy punted the football, it felt like the returner would slip up or fumble the football. It was crazy. It was like 4 times in his first 5 punts it happened. So I called him Slippery Sam Martin. 42.1 yards in net average, which is pretty damn good. I like what he's done. He's a very solid punter for us. We only punted 47 times last year. I expect that number to be even less this year. So they were calling us the no punt Bills for a while, but when he does punt, he does make a difference, and love what he brings to the table. Listen, I love Michael Turk, Jake Bailey, former Pro Bowler, but he was injured last year, and injuries definitely, especially leg injuries for a punter, hurt them a lot more than a kicker. So my thought is, just looking at this whole thing here, I think the Bills kind of beat the crap out of the Dolphins in terms of special teams. I'm sorry, Keith.
No, I agree. I think the Dolphins special teams is solid, but they're not gonna win their games off of special teams. They're gonna win their games off their offense and defense.
Yeah.
Well,
and if you're talking special teamers, I like that Cap for Life brings this in here. Trent Sherfield is going to be the guy that probably replaces Jake Kummerow for us as a gunner on the outside there. So I'm excited about that. He's awesome on specials. Yeah.
He did well for the Dolphins last year.
Yeah.
I just want to say, you guys didn't talk about this beforehand, and I'm going to recap this, and you'll be shocked. It's
long snappers.
It's a dead heat, guys. It's a dead heat. So we started with defensive line. Keith conceded the defensive line to the Buffalo Bills. Then linebackers. Jake conceded the linebackers to the Dolphins. Then we followed up with corners. Jake again conceded the corners to the Dolphins. Then we got into safeties, and Keith conceded his safety. Close match up there, very close. And he gave it to the veterans on the Buffalo Bills. As far as overall secondary, it was a draw. I mean, it really was. When you factor in the veterans back there helping out the Bills corners, the younger guys on the Dolphins, it was just a wash. I mean, great secondaries all around there. Then we went over to the offensive side, and then Keith called PFF because no one was given ground on that. And sure enough, PFF gave the Dolphins the edge on the offensive line. Again, don't know what Osiris Torrance is going to do. He wasn't factored into that. You can't factor in these rookies. You just don't know what's going to happen there. Then we went to tight ends. Keith conceded the tight ends to the Buffalo Bills, and why wouldn't you? And then on wide receivers, of course, Jake, gracious, and he concedes the wide receivers to the Dolphins. Then in the running backs, which was close, Jake called PFF, and PFF said, I'm going to give the edge to the Dolphins in the running back room. Keith concedes the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, and then it was a draw for coaches. Both of you had great points there. And Keith conceded the special teams for the Bills. So when you add it all up, each of the teams had 5 positional groups that they won. It was 5-5, and then 2 draws. I mean, guys, this just goes to show you how good these teams are. Now, I know the records didn't reflect that last year. I mean, it was close early on, but with all the stuff that happened with Tua, and I think what'd you finish, like 3-4 games behind the Bills, something like that? So it was close early on, but when you look at the fact that we had 3 games against the Dolphins, all within a score, and the Dolphins, with a rookie starting in the playoff game, had the ball and a final drive with a chance to win. And fortunately for us Bills fans, the defense held up. Kyer Elam making probably the biggest stop in his early career. But guys, this is going to be a brawl this year. These teams are fantastic, and you guys did a amazing job. So you just don't get this kind of information. So anyhow, any final thoughts? Keith, I know you're in a hurry. You did a fantastic job, young man. I know you're new to the streaming community, but my God, you represented better than anyone I've seen for the Dolphins. So final thoughts for you, sir.
This was a lot of fun, and it's going to be an absolute dogfight. I do think the Dolphins are a huge threat to the Bills this year. I'm excited to see what our Jets rep has to say next week. I'm definitely going to tune in to see what he has to say about everything. But this is going to be an absolute dogfight. It's going to be such a fun season, and I think it's going to come down to a couple of games. Probably the Dolphins-Bills games. It's going to come down to see who wins this thing. So. Man, I didn't expect this to tie. I honestly, I didn't know what to expect going in, but a tie, that's wow. It's kind of mind-blowing.
The schedule makers kind of switched it up this year, right? They have the Dolphins coming to Buffalo a little earlier, and they have the Bills going to the Dolphins' final game of the year, which could be for the division. I know Jake and I, when we did our schedule predictions, we both had that game for the division. So
it's going to be huge.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Go ahead, Jake. I know you love this stuff.
Listen, if we're going to have a tiebreaker here, you know how much I love the long snapper position. So listen, the longest tenured Buffalo Bill on the team right now is Reed Ferguson, wears number 69, which is fantastic. The guy is one of the coolest players on the team as well. You call him up to go golf, and apparently he'll go golfing with you too. My good friend Joe Miller just told me that not too long ago, so that's pretty cool too. So if you're going to break it down that way, and this is going to be the tiebreaker, I think, listen, I like Blake Ferguson, but I'm going to put Reed over Blake. But had to pull that up. I love that comment, Brett. That's hilarious. But no, I mean, in our schedule prediction show, I literally had it coming down to the last regular season game. We will see that game flex. That's going to be a night game, and it's going to be for the division.
Definitely.
Bills, Dolphins. It's going to be awesome, man. I can't wait. Yeah. You did a hell of a job representing your team. And you are the biggest threat to the Bills in the AFC East. There's no doubt in my mind. And screw whatever Dom and Chris have to say about it. Listen, I like those guys a lot, but I really feel like the Dolphins are that team this year.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll have them on, and we'll see what they have to say. You know, Chris is already predicting the Patriots on the rise. He's got them over the Jets and the Dolphins, which is going to be fun to have him on the show. But Keith, great job. I know you got to get running. I want to thank everyone out there who joined us. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button. Drop a nickel on that subscribe button, as we always say, and share. We appreciate you guys supporting us, and these two deserve at least a like. Smash that like. Get on over to the AFC East Summit as well, and you'll enjoy more content. It'll be all 4 AFC East teams giving you their best. So good stuff, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Guys.
Go Bills.